They said they would protect us, she answered, but her small voice wavered. That means they must fight the Dominion. And everyone knew what fighting meant when humans were involved. Stories traveled across the galaxy like fire in dry grass. The siege of Herath, where humans fought until every wall was rubble but did not retreat. The War of Callan, where human marines stormed an enemy fortress and did not stop until the defenders begged for surrender. The death of Rhinar, when humans destroyed an entire fleet in a single night, leaving wreckage drifting for decades. Humans never came gently. Soon, smaller human ships descended through the clouds. Dropships touched down near the capital, their hulls dark and scarred from old battles. The doors opened and the Volari saw them at last, the Deathworlders, tall, broad, wrapped in black armor that seemed too heavy for any other species to wear. Their faces were harsh, their eyes sharp like blades. They moved with the calm steps of predators, every motion precise, every stance ready. Saren stepped forward to greet them, though fear twisted inside her chest. At the front of the formation was a human with silver hair, a scar cutting across his cheek. His presence was like a storm, quiet but heavy with power. "I am Admiral Kalen," he said, his voice like iron. Saren bowed her head. "I am Chancellor Saren. On behalf of my people, I thank you. The Zeroth Dominion has crushed our fleets, burned our cities, and taken our colonies. We have no hope without you." Kalen's eyes narrowed slightly. "Then you will have hope again. The Dominion has made their move. Now they will learn the cost." The words were not comfort. They were a sentence. Later in the underground command shelter, Saren spoke quietly to one of her surviving counselors. They answered. She whispered, "The humans truly came." "Yes," the counselor replied, his voice heavy. "But did they come as saviors? Or executioners?" Saren did not answer. She only remembered Kalen's promise echoing in her ears. "We always come." But she could not shake the feeling that when the humans came, they did not just save lives. They reshaped wars. They ended enemies. And they left scars that never healed. The Volari had asked for mercy. But what they had summoned was something far different. They had summoned the wrath of Deathworlders. The Volari people had expected words of comfort, promises of peace, and talks of negotiation. Instead, the humans wasted no time. The very night they arrived, their fleet moved like a blade cutting through the dark. Engines burned bright as warships shifted into new formations ready for battle. To the Volari, it felt as if the humans had been waiting for this moment all along, as if they carried war in their bones. Chancellor Saren stood in the underground command shelter, watching the holomap. The human dreadnoughts and carriers formed a great wall around Valar Prime, while destroyers and frigates moved like wolves hunting at the edges. The Zeroth fleet, vast and cruel, was already approaching for their next strike. "This is madness," whispered Counselor Theris, his face pale. "The Dominion fleet outnumbers them 3-1. "They know," Saren replied quietly. She could not take her eyes off the human ships. "And yet they are not afraid." High above, in the command bridge of the Aegis, Admiral Kalen stood with arms crossed. His officers moved with calm precision. To them, this was not desperation. This was routine. Dominion fleet entering the system, an officer reported. 75 warships advancing in tight formation. Orbital bombardment protocols detected. Kalen's eyes narrowed. "Targeting solutions?" "All weapons locked." "Fighters standing by." The Admiral gave a single nod. "Then we begin." No long speech, no rallying cry. Just 3 words, cold and final. "Engage the enemy." The void erupted in fire. The first volley came from the Aegis itself. Its cannons unleashed a storm of plasma so bright it lit up the system like a newborn sun. Entire Dominion cruisers vanished in the first strike, torn apart before they could even raise shields. Then the rest of the human fleet followed. Frigates darted forward, weaving between enemy ships, firing rail cannons that punched through armor like paper. Carriers released swarms of fighters, small, fast, and merciless. They moved like a tide of metal insects, overwhelming every Zeroth craft they touched. The Volari command shelter shook as distant thunder echoed from orbit, their holomap lit with explosions, ships vanishing in bursts of fire. "They're winning," one of the officers whispered in disbelief. "They're outnumbered, but they're winning." The Zeroth responded with fury. Their warships spat streams of plasma, targeting human carriers and destroyers. Explosions rocked through the human fleet, but still they advanced. Human ships burned, yet none retreated. Every vessel fought until its last breath. On the ground, Valari citizens filled the streets, watching the heavens. They saw the sky light up with streaks of fire. Some cried, others prayed, and many simply stood frozen as the greatest battle they had ever known unfolded above. One child clutched his mother's hand and asked softly, "Are they angels, Mother?" The woman shook her head, tears in her eyes. "No, child. They are something far older, something far harsher." Back on the Aegis, Kalen moved between his officers like a man walking through rain, untouched by fear. "Status of Dominion fleet?" he asked. 30 ships destroyed, 20 crippled. They are breaking formation. Kalen's expression hardened. "Do not let them run. Press the assault. End this." And so the humans did. Their fleet surged forward with terrifying precision. Fighters cut into fleeing cruisers, ripping them apart piece by piece. Rail slugs from human destroyers tore straight through battleship hulls. The dreadnought Aegis unleashed another storm that shattered the Dominion flagship in a single, merciless blow. By the time silence returned to the stars, the Zeroth fleet was gone. 75 ships had come. Only fragments remained. In the command shelter, Valari counselors stared in stunned silence at the holomap. The red lights of enemy ships had vanished, replaced by wreckage. "It's impossible," Theris whispered. His voice cracked, half in awe, half in terror. No fleet should have that kind of power. Saren's heart pounded in her chest. Relief washed over her, but it was mixed with fear. Because she now understood the truth. The humans had not come as saviors. They had come as executioners, and the Dominion had just learned the cost of awakening Deathworlders. When dawn rose over Valar Prime, the skies were quiet for the first time in weeks. No Dominion ships cast shadows over the cities. No bombardments shook the ground. Only drifting wreckage glimmered faintly above the horizon like dying stars. The Valari people walked into the open streets, stunned. They looked upward, where the human fleet still hung in the heavens. Enormous silhouettes of steel loomed against the light of the sun, silent and waiting. For the Valari, it was like staring at gods. Gods that had descended from the void, burned their enemies, and now lingered above, deciding the fate of mortals. In the underground command shelter, Chancellor Saren tried to steady her voice as she addressed her people through the broadcast system. "Citizens of Valar Prime, the Dominion fleet has been destroyed. The humans answered our call. We are alive because of them." Her words echoed through every broken street and ruined home. Cheers erupted, mixed with sobs of relief. For a moment, the Valari truly believed survival was possible. But Saren's heart remained heavy. Survival always came at a price. Later, she stood before Admiral Kalen in a temporary war chamber, set up inside the capital's ruins. The human admiral stood tall, armored even now, his eyes sharp and cold. Around him, human officers displayed battle reports on glowing screens. Saren bowed her head slightly. "Admiral, on behalf of the Valari Union, I thank you. You saved us from annihilation." Kalen regarded her with unreadable eyes. "We do not save, we fight. The Dominion will return, and next time they will not come with 75 ships. They will come with hundreds." The words pierced her relief like a blade. Then what are we to do?" Kalen's gaze shifted to the map of stars above the table. His voice was steady, almost emotionless. "You called us. Now this war is ours." The Valari counselors whispered in fear when they heard the Admiral's decision. "What does he mean?" one asked. "Does he mean to stay here?" "No," another replied grimly. "He means to take the war to the Dominion itself." And so it became clear. The humans had not come merely to protect Valar Prime. They had come to hunt. That evening, Saren walked through the city with 2 guards. Fires still burned in the ruins. Families searched for the missing. Children cried softly as parents held them close. The stars above Valar Prime were silent, cold, and indifferent. Yet beneath them, the Valari Union was burning. The Zeroth Dominion had come without warning. They were not diplomats. They were not seekers of peace. They were predators, and their ships spread across Valari skies like a storm of fire. Plasma bolts rained down on the shining cities, tearing through spires of glass and steel. Millions fled to the shelters, but even those were not safe. Entire colonies had already been erased in the first days of war. The Valari Union was a people of art, trade, and knowledge. They were known across the galaxy as gentle, thoughtful, and endlessly patient. But gentle words could not stop orbital bombardment. Patience could not block a blade pressed to the throat. The Volari fleets, small, defensive, more symbolic than real, had been torn apart in their first battle. What remained of their navy was now scattered wreckage drifting in orbit. Inside the grand chamber of Velar Prime, Chancellor Saren stood with trembling hands. Around her, other council members sat in silence, their faces pale with fear. None spoke of victory anymore. None dared to pretend survival was possible. "We have no armies left," whispered Councillor Theris. "The Dominion will break through our last defenses within the week. Perhaps surrender would spare the civilians." The words echoed in the chamber like poison. Saren felt her chest tighten. Surrender? The Zeroth did not take prisoners. They enslaved. They experimented. They broke entire cultures until nothing remained. She had seen the reports. Whole planets turned into work camps, children forced into mines, elders left to die in cages. "No," Saren said firmly, though her voice trembled. "We will not surrender. We will not give them our children." The chamber fell quiet. Every eye turned to her, waiting for an answer that seemed impossible. And then slowly, Saren lifted a small, ancient device from the center of the table. It was old, older than the Union itself. A relic from forgotten wars. The SOS protocol beacon. For centuries it had been hidden, locked away, its use forbidden unless all hope was gone. Because the one who answered this call was not a savior most desired. When Saren placed her hand on the beacon, it began to hum with deep vibrations. A sharp pulse of light raced outward, vanishing into the dark sky, faster than light, racing across the galactic web. A single message burned within it. SOS Volari Union requests aid immediate. Any who hear, respond. The chamber seemed to grow colder as the message left their world. Some counselors bowed their heads, others covered their faces in despair. "They will come," whispered Theris, though the tone was not relief. It was dread. "Do you truly believe they will answer?" asked another. "Yes," Saren replied softly. Her eyes were on the stars beyond the glass walls. "They are the only ones who still answer." The name hung heavy in the air, though none dared to say it aloud. Everyone in the galaxy knew the truth. The peacekeeping races ignored SOS signals, claiming neutrality. The merchant guilds never lifted a finger unless profit was promised. The protectorates were too afraid of the Zeroth to interfere. Only one species still came when the signal was sent. Only one species had made a vow long ago to never leave the weak unanswered. The humans. The Deathworlders. The Volari trembled at the thought. To live beside humans was to live beside storms and monsters wrapped in flesh. Their homeworld, Earth, was the most dangerous known. Its skies full of lightning, its lands full of predators, its oceans deep with hunters. Their very existence was proof of impossible resilience. They were feared, whispered about in taverns and academies alike, and yet they were also the last hope. Saren's heart ached as she whispered, "Let them have mercy." But in her heart, she doubted mercy was what humans would bring. The SOS beacon sped on, screaming across the stars, and somewhere in the void, it would be heard, and when the Deathworlders came, they would not come with mercy. They would come with war. The SOS signal traveled through the void, silent and unseen, yet powerful enough to reach the edge of known space. It carried desperation, fear, and a single plea: "Help us." For a long time, no answer came. The Volari Union waited under the shadow of the Zeroth, counting every day as if it might be their last. Cities fell one after another. Refugees poured into the capital, their faces hollow, their voices filled with grief. The skies of Velar Prime burned brighter each night with the glow of orbital fire. But far away, in a region of space no one dared to cross, the signal reached them, the humans. The first to hear it were the operators aboard a listening station orbiting a red dwarf star. They were hardened veterans scarred by years of conflict, but when the signal reached their screens, the room fell silent. The letters pulsed again and again. SOS Volari Union, immediate aid requested. The station commander, a woman with steel in her eyes, stared at the message for a long time. Then she nodded once and said, "Forward it to High Command. Mark it as Priority 1. Within hours, the call reached the human fleet. The fleet was vast, spread across colonies, patrol lines, and hidden bases. But when the beacon came, everything changed. Orders were cut, engines ignited, and ancient warships stirred from their long slumber. The humans had made a promise long ago, To never ignore the weak no matter the cost. To answer every SOS, even if it meant blood, and the Deathworlders never broke their promises. Back on Valar Prime, Chancellor Saren sat in the ruins of the Grand Chamber. A bombardment had struck the city 2 days earlier, shattering the council hall. Half of her counselors were dead, buried under the rubble. The survivors worked from underground shelters now, but hope was fading. No message had returned. No sign of help. Only silence. "They are not coming," whispered Theris bitterly. He had once been the loudest voice against surrender. Now his spirit was broken. The humans. Perhaps they abandoned that vow long ago. Perhaps they chose peace at last. Saren closed her eyes, exhausted. She wanted to believe otherwise, but every day without an answer felt like another nail in their coffin. Then, on the third night after the bombardment, the sky changed. The Valari citizens, huddled in shelters, came running to the surface as alarms blared. At first they thought the Dominion had returned with more warships. But what they saw froze them in place. Stars shifted, then multiplied. Dozens of massive shadows filled the night sky, their silhouettes blotting out the heavens. Engines glowed like suns, brighter than anything Valari eyes had ever seen. The ships were colossal, their hulls bristling with cannons and armor that looked carved from black mountains. It was not the Seroth, it was something far more terrifying. It was the human. Armada panic rippled through the Valari streets. Mothers pulled children close. Elders whispered prayers. Even soldiers stared upward with pale faces. "They came," someone whispered. The Deathworlders answered. On the palace balcony, Saren herself looked to the sky. Her breath caught in her throat as she counted the endless silhouettes of warships above. Never had she seen such power gathered in one place, and then her communicator crackled. "This is Admiral Kalen, United Terran Navy." A deep voice spoke, hard and calm as stone. "Valari Union, your signal was received. You are under human protection now." Saren's knees almost gave out. For a moment she felt relief, like a flood breaking through her chest. They had come. The humans had answered, but as she gazed at the dark giants above her world, she also felt fear coil inside her, for she had heard the stories. Where the humans went, destruction followed. Their mercy was carved in fire and steel. The Seroth had unleashed a storm upon the Valari Union. But in doing so, they had awakened something even worse, and the galaxy would soon remember why the humans were called Deathworlders. The skies of Valar Prime glowed with the fire of engines. The human fleet stretched across the heavens like a wall of steel. To the Valari, it was both breathtaking and terrifying. Every ship looked like a fortress. Some were massive carriers, each holding thousands of smaller craft. Others were sleek destroyers with lines of cannons that shimmered in the starlight. And at the center, towering above them all, was a ship so large it seemed impossible. Its shadow covered entire cities. The Terran dreadnought Aegis Chancellor Saren stood with her guards on the balcony, her hands trembling as she stared at the giant ship. She could not imagine the kind of power it carried. She could only imagine what such power would do if turned against her people. Her communicator buzzed again. The same voice, cold and commanding, filled the air. "This is Admiral Kalen of the United Terran Navy. Valari Union, your distress signal has been received and acknowledged. Stand by for deployment. The word sent a shiver down Saren's spine. She swallowed hard, then answered, her voice thin. "This is Chancellor Saren of the Valari Union. We are grateful for your arrival. We did not believe anyone would come." The line was silent for a long moment. Then the Admiral replied, "We always come." Simple words, yet heavy. The humans had a reputation for such answers. Few, direct and final. They spoke like soldiers who had nothing left to prove. The Valari people gathered in the city squares, watching the skies. Some cried with relief. Others prayed. Many were simply afraid. "What will they do to us?" whispered an elder to his granddaughter. The Chancellor felt the weight of every broken life. She wanted to believe the humans would rebuild what was lost, that they would help heal her people. But when she looked up again, all she saw were warships, silent and unyielding. "Are they protectors?" she whispered to herself, "or destroyers wearing the mask of guardians?" Her guard did not answer. There was no answer. Above the planet, aboard the Aegis, Admiral Kalen stood at the viewing deck with his officers. The wreckage of Dominion ships still floated in the void, silent monuments of destruction. One of his captains approached. "Admiral, shall we begin pursuit? Dominion reinforcements will learn of this defeat soon." Kalen's jaw tightened. His eyes burned with a fire older than fear. Send word to the fleet. We strike first. Before the Dominion gathers strength, we will not wait for them to come again. Yes, sir. The captain turned to leave but paused. Admiral, the Valari are grateful. They see us as saviors. Kalen's expression did not soften. He spoke in a voice quiet but heavy with truth. We are not saviors. We are Deathworlders. And the Dominion will learn what that means. Back on Valar Prime, Saren looked once more at the sky. She could not shake the feeling that by calling for help, she had unleashed something far greater than she understood. The Dominion had expected mercy when they saw the SOS signal. Instead, the Deathworlders had come, bringing with them a storm that would not stop until everything in its path was ash and silence. And Saren wondered, as the stars glowed faintly above, would her people survive the humans' war, even if they won? The news of the Dominion's defeat at Valar Prime spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Entire civilizations whispered in disbelief. The Zeroth Dominion had crushed dozens of worlds without resistance, yet here, at the edge of Valari space, they had been broken. And not by diplomacy, not by treaties, by the humans. For the Valari, hope flickered like a fragile flame. For the Dominion, rage boiled like molten fire. And for the rest of the galaxy, fear deepened. Everyone knew what it meant when the Deathworlders moved. They never stopped halfway. The human armada did not linger long above Valar Prime. Within days, engines flared again, and the fleet turned outward toward Dominion space. Valari engineers watched in awe as the giant warships prepared for departure. Whole cities gathered to witness their departure, standing in silence as the armada stretched its wings like a predator leaving its perch. Inside the war chamber, Chancellor Saren made one last attempt to understand. "You are leaving us?" she asked Admiral Kalen, her voice thin. Kalen stood in the shadows of the holomap, his scarred face lit only by the glow of battle roots. "We are not leaving. We are taking the war away from your home. If the Dominion returns here, it will be with ashes for fuel and desperation for strength." Saren's lips trembled. "And if they retaliate against your people? Against Earth?" Kalen's eyes hardened. "Then we burn them down to their roots. This war will end only one way." The Valari watched as the humans departed carrying war into the stars. They had hoped for guardians. Instead, they had unleashed hunters. The Dominion tried to prepare. Fleets gathered, fortresses strengthened, and propaganda declared that humans were nothing but beasts who had gotten lucky at Valar Prime. But words did not stop steel, and speeches did not block cannon fire. The humans struck first. In the Arikan sector, a Dominion supply fleet of 50 ships was ambushed. Not one survived. In the Rethan system, a fortress world believed to be impenetrable fell within hours as human marines stormed its bunkers and left only silence behind. Everywhere the Dominion expected mercy, they found none. The humans did not negotiate. They did not slow. They did not stop. Survivors spoke of shadows descending from the void. They told stories of human soldiers in black armor who moved like predators, fighting without fear, never retreating. They spoke of human fleets that shattered whole systems in nights of fire, then vanished before reinforcements could arrive. To the Dominion, it felt less like a war and more like being hunted. In the Valari Union, Saren listened to every new report that came across the galactic net. At first she felt relief. Each victory meant safety for her people. But over time, the victories became harder to hear. Whole Dominion colonies were destroyed. Civilian transports vanished. Entire populations disappeared into the dark. Saren began to ask herself a question that haunted her. At what point does protection become vengeance? Her counselors celebrated each report. "They are breaking the Dominion's back," Theris said, smiling for the first time in weeks. The humans are delivering justice, but Saren was not so sure it was justice. To her it looked like something older, something darker. It looked like wrath. Far away, aboard the Aegis, Admiral Kalen stood on the bridge, watching another Dominion world burn beneath his fleet's bombardment. His officers moved with mechanical calm, announcing destroyed targets and eliminated defenses. A young lieutenant hesitated before reporting. "Admiral, scans show significant civilian presence. Shall we adjust fire?" Kalen's eyes stayed locked on the burning planet below. His voice was cold, steady, and merciless. "No adjustments. Dominion civilians feed Dominion soldiers. This is war. End it." The lieutenant swallowed hard but obeyed. The cannons fired again, drowning the world in fire. The galaxy trembled. The Dominion had wanted conquest. The Valari had wanted mercy. But what they had both received was something else entirely. They had awakened the fury of Deathworlders, and now, the humans would not stop until the galaxy itself remembered why they had sworn never to ignore an SOS. The war did not last years. It did not even last decades. It ended in months. The Zeroth Dominion, feared across the galaxy for centuries, was broken like glass under the weight of storms. World after world fell, fleets shattered, fortresses turned to rubble. Everywhere the humans went, fire followed. The galaxy watched in silence. Some felt relief that the Dominion was gone. Others felt dread, wondering what would happen when the humans ran out of enemies, and the Valari, whose SOS had started it all, lived in the shadow of both salvation and fear. Chancellor Saren sat alone in her chamber, staring at the stars. Reports had just come in. The Dominion capital had fallen. Its fleets were destroyed, its leaders executed, its throne world reduced to smoking ruins. The war was over. Her people cheered in the streets. Bells rang through the cities, children laughed again, and the Union felt alive for the first time in months. But Saren could not bring herself to celebrate. She remembered too clearly the firestorms, the endless thunder of cannons, and the cold voice of Admiral Kalen. The humans had won. But how much of the galaxy had they burned to do it? That night, the human admiral returned to Valar Prime. His dreadnought cast a vast shadow over the capital as his shuttle descended. Saren met him in the council ruins, the same place where she had first begged for aid. Admiral Kalen stood before her, his scarred face unreadable. His armor still bore the marks of battle, and his eyes held the weight of a man who had seen too much. "It is done," he said simply. Saren swallowed hard. "The Dominion is gone?" "Gone," Kalen confirmed. "They will never rise again." There was no pride in his voice. No triumph. Only finality. For a long moment, Saren said nothing. Then she whispered, "You saved us. But you also terrify us." Kalen's eyes softened, just slightly. "That is the way of my people. We do not come with peace treaties and gentle hands. We come with steel and fire. That is how we survive." Saren's voice trembled. "Then why answer the SOS at all? Why save us if you bring only fear?" For the first time, the Admiral looked away, his gaze drifting toward the night sky. His voice was quiet, almost human, almost fragile. "Because once, long ago, no one answered us. We swore that would never happen to anyone else." Saren's heart ached at his words. Behind the armor and the fire, she saw a truth. The humans did not fight because they loved war. They fought because the galaxy had forced them to, because no one had ever shown them mercy. They no longer knew how to give it. When Kalen departed, his armada rose once more into the stars. Some ships remained to guard Valari space, but most drifted away, searching for the next shadow, the next cry for help. The galaxy watched them go in silence. Whispers spread through trading hubs, through diplomatic halls, through every corner of civilization. Some called the humans saviors. Others called them monsters, but all agreed on one truth. When the Deathworlders arrived, wars ended. On Valar Prime, children grew up staring at the night sky, remembering the day the humans had come. They would tell their children stories of black ships that blotted out the sun, of soldiers who walked like storms, and of a single promise spoken in iron voices: "We always come." Saren often walked the city streets, rebuilt slowly with human assistance. Life returned, but she carried the memory of those dark days within her heart. Sometimes when the night was clear, she would look up at the stars and whisper a quiet prayer. May no one else ever have to call them. May no one else ever know what it means when the Deathworlders arrive. But deep inside, she also knew the truth. The galaxy was full of predators, full of empires waiting to prey on the weak. And someday another SOS would burn across the void. And when that day came, the humans would answer. Not with mercy, not with peace, but with the only gift they knew how to give: war.